Sons of Tomorrow's. Stand the server 666, Light of the Tower. This here is going to be a lore video on the lore of 666 Season 1. So let's hope I can do all the layering and everything correctly here. So, 666 started off as not your regular server, but a high interest, high impact server because, of course, the number. Starting in the northwest, we had the Jaegers. I don't even know. Is this still? Yep, we had YGG, the Jaegers. Alright, and the strongest member in the entire game to start off with for the first 2 weeks was Diablo. So we had Diablo there with the Jaegers. Then, over in the right hand side, so the northeast, we had Cobra, which I think has been renamed now. You guys don't know what Jaegers, are you? Yeah. So Northern Water, what is it? Northern Water Healing was Cobra Kai. Then in the east, we had the Gray family, which has also looks like they've been renamed as well. So we had the Gray family, yeah, because they were, which is now being renamed Devil's Flower Bud, I guess. So I believe that was the Gray family. Then going to the south, actually we'll continue. Going to the southeast, we had Northern Water Tribe. Moving along to the left here, in the southwest, we had PLX and Northern Water Tribe Academy. All right, so we got Northern Water Tribe there. Over here started the Academy and PLX. So all the land you see here, all of this was actually PLX. Okay, so the server started off with a lot of fighting. PLX was constantly fighting Northern Water Academy. So that happened, and after about the first week of war, we had Cobra Kai and Jaegers fight. Now, even though the Jaegers had the stronger alliance, their leadership and members gave up, and it was something like 12 hours. I don't even know if the fight lasted 12 hours, because by the time you heard about the fight, it was over, and Cobra Kai had won. Now, most of their members actually ended up moving over into Cobra Kai, where other members that were disgruntled, some stayed in Jaegers, like Diablo stayed and then basically quit the game, and some of their members moved over into PLX. The disgruntled members there. So Cobra Kai then ended up having 3 main whales come out of them, and the 3 main whales were Krathix, Wawa, and Kiyomi. So those, Shinshu was his original name, and then he changed it to Kiyomi. And so we had 3 main members there, where the Gray family ended up having Solar 666 as their main player, and Northern Water Tribe got a player called Atlas as their main whale. PLX had, they had Hugs. Hugs was one of their main members, and I don't even know if I can remember. Oh yeah, they're pretty much gone now. It was drawn, and his name escapes me. totally can't remember his name now. But the server goes as any other server goes, and because there was 3 whales in Cobra Kai, everyone was talking about the major whales, and you always get a lot of gold diggers. So everyone was kind of chasing the gold diggers, everyone was following the Russians. Cobra Kai was a Russian-led alliance, led by Queen Cobra, who later changed her name into Maleficent. So she ran Cobra Kai, where Zuko ran the Northern Water Tribe. And then we had the Gray family, who I can't remember who led the Gray family, but he ended up quitting after the Gray family ended up basically merging with Northern Water Tribe there. So Zuko had a partnership with the Gray family that they would together work together to take the dragon in the end against Cobra Kai. Now, as all servers go, there needs to be someone who takes the behemoth. In season 1 is all about behemoths and diplomacy. That's really what season 1 is all about. There's not really much merits or fighting that goes on. So Northern Water Tribe ended up claiming all of the frames. I believe we got all of them. So Northern Water Tribe got the bear frame. We got the giant frame. Or Northern Water Tribe got the giant frame. We then got the bird frame, which Atlas didn't end up getting because they started it right as he was walking into the pit. They didn't wait for him. That's a story for another time. And then it was a hard fight for the Hydra. So with the Hydra, what came here was after the bird, Zuko didn't step down. Zuko was finishing exams for the end of his school year, and he wanted someone else to take the main R5 for 14 days. So rotating R5 gives someone more R5 kind of responsibility for 14 days, and then he was going to take it back. That's what was discussed, everything like that. So the player that ended up taking over R5 primarily was the Moshi 23, as well as K4, otherwise known as Carnage, otherwise known as K4, because he spelt all the vowels with numbers. So those two kind of spearheaded taking over the R5 role for Zuko while he was doing exams, and he was kind of coming in and out of the game, where we just had Queen Maleficent up here taking everything and taking, where were they? They were at one of these 2 Hydras, actually. I think it was this one. Yep. So they were at the Hydra and trying to take that. Now, we thought for sure, everyone in the entire server thought for sure they had 3 whales, and at this point in time, Kiyomi hit 35 million power and was the first player to unlock T5 units. So Kiyomi unlocked, he was actually a mage main who later became a cav main once he learned how powerful cavalry units were, but he did start off as a mage main. So they ended up failing several times on trying to capture the Hydra, and they were unsuccessful for days on capturing the Hydra. So in the end, every single day that was passing, Northern Water Tribe, being one of the last remaining main alliances, at this point in time of the server, by the time Hydra hit, there was only the Northern Water Tribe, PLX, and Cobra Kai left alive. So every single day, Northern Water Tribe was losing 1 to 5 members that were all resurging up to Cobra Kai. All of these gold diggers were going up there, hoping to get the gold chests from Krathix, Wawa, Kiyomi. But in the end, it was actually Northern Water Tribe who claimed the frame. The frame was claimed Atlas, Solar, Nidalee, Banatita, Skyheart. We had our own Diablo. This was not the same Diablo that was in Jaeger's. That one quit. This is a Vietnamese player. The Moshi, Chill Guy. We had Yomi, Sleeping Yomi, whatever she goes by now. Mickey, we had our Vex, our French players. So, Dex in there. So you can see Mizzy Tanker. We ended up claiming the Hydra first, or Northern Water Tribe ended up claiming the Hydra first. Once we got that, we secured the first 4 frames. When that happened, the level 2 gates were opened, and Kiyomi, Wawa, Krathix ended up migrating to Northern Water Tribe. That destroyed, basically was insane. Everyone was cheering, laughing. We were all having a blast because it was about within an hour of us taking that frame. The 3 big whales came to Northern Water Tribe, creating the 4 pillars of Northern Water Tribe, being 4 T5 members in Season 1. Absolutely insane. So Zuko had basically everything going for him. He was the one that convinced those 3 players to come over to our alliance, with better management, better coordination. The Moshi 23, Carnage, us, everyone in Northern Water Tribe was working so well, which is now called Northern Water Fire. As you can see there, this was Northern Water Tribe. And we'll get to why all these names are all screwed up. And what happened to the server. Shortly after Bear was taken, it had been the 14 days for Zuko. Oh, wrong button. So Wawa, Mind Your Own, they got this one. K4 was still here. Zuko was still here. You can see Krathix joined. So you can see the whales are now here. I can't remember which bear we took first. So I was in this one, Zinshu, so that's Kiyomi there. So as you can see, that's what we did. I think we took this one first, and then we took this one, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was the second one we took. But anyways, all that was left, Cobra Kai basically died out after the 3 members left. The 3 T5s left and joined Northern Water Tribe. All the gold diggers, most of them just quit playing in droves. We had a few members, a few other members, more than a few. We had about 200 people that were, Northern Water Tribe had about 200 people that were trying to get into the Alliance, and we only had about 110 slots. So we had about 90 players from Cobra Kai that were trying to join us, and so we were like, you could join, Northern Water Tribe was like, you can join the academy till we can get you in the main alliance. And a lot of players were upset with that, so they just started quitting in droves. So at this point in time, there's only a fraction of the players playing in Cobra Kai. Queen Maleficent quits. She basically stops playing the game as well. I think Ogre was one of the only players, active players left. And then PLX. So PLX is Hugs. He was also left. So all that's left now was PLX versus Northern Water Tribe after that point in time. Once the third gate opened up, Zuko said to the Moshi 23, who currently had R5, that to pass R5 back to him. He's finished his exams, he'll be back to being R5 full time. Well, this is where all the drama began and started with the Moshi refused to give back R5. His excuse being that he had done a lot of work, which he had. It's not an excuse. It is the truth. He had done a lot of work for being R5, and he had done a lot of work for migration, and he had all of the migration spreadsheets and everything like that that he's been working on and working for the future. So he refused to give back R5 to Zuko, stating that he was going to be the new R5. Yes. Then it came out publicly that the Moshi 23 was going to be the new full-time R5 of Northern Water Tribe. That caused a lot of players to become disgruntled, to become upset. Most players were new to Northern Water Tribe. Most players in Northern Water Tribe joined back after we got the Hydra. So we're only maybe 80 players. I think Northern Water Tribe was like 80, maybe 190 players. I don't even think we crossed 100 because all of our players were going up to Cobra. So, yeah, and now all of them are coming to us, and all of them have only played while the Moshi 23 and K4 have been the R5s. So I was Atlas, it's me speaking, but I was at work that day, and this happened in the morning right after I went to work, and by that afternoon, the Moshi had forced Zuko out of the alliance. He was forced out, and then Zuko uninstalled the game. Yeah. So a lot of players like Atlas became disgruntled, became upset, but nobody really voiced that concern overly, because many players were afraid that if they voiced their concerns with the Moshi 23 staying as R5, that they would be kicked out of the alliance. So most people stayed silent, and that's how it was. This was about a Thursday or a Friday that this happened. By the Saturday, so this is maybe 2 days later, an argument erupted between Atlas and the Moshi 23. And I won't get into specifics about what happened, but we ended up having a big argument and a big fight. By that Sunday, it reached its peak, and the Atlas ended up leaving Northern Water Tribe. He first joined PLX and then resurged and joined Cobra Kai, trying to revive PLX and the Cobra Kai members that were left there, and started a civil war with Northern Water Tribe. Yep. This civil war broke out, and it was mostly just a drama fest. But the Atlas declared war on Northern Water Tribe. He declared his demands. Everyone in 666 knew this happened. Cobra Kai's old members that had quit started playing again. PLX resurged PLX as well, and PLX and Cobra joined forces against Northern Water Tribe. The plan was simple, that after Magma, you get that you can transfer between alliances without having to do resurgence. So you could transfer, so everyone could transfer to PLX and Cobra Kai. At this point in time, a player called Mizzy Tanker ended up, because the Moshi 23 was like, if anyone else has problems with me, let me know. We can talk about this. We can talk through this. And Mizzy Tanker said, well, I have also felt disgruntled, put out. And so he was like, let's have a vote whether we want Zuko or the Moshi 23 to become R5. And when Mizzy Tanker was then kicked out of the alliance for asking for a vote. So at that point in time, we had 40 strong active Vietnamese players. It was something like 36, to be honest with you, because I did Roots of War. But so we had a close to 40 fully active members of the Vietnamese team, led by Mizzy Tanker and Chill Guy. So they then joined. The resistance. We had many players. Yomi, so many players stood up then against Moshi 23. They said they didn't like how that they were running the place. Moshi, his whole view of the game was, one, pressing forward into future seasons, which honestly I 100% agree with. He was great with doing that, but he became, this is putting my own little interjection there, I felt he became arrogant once he kicked Zuko out of the alliance. And many people are going to be like, he didn't kick Zuko out of the alliance, Zuko quit the alliance, but that is because Moshi was telling Yomi, I think she went by Sleepy Yomi at that point in time, I had the screenshots sent to me where Moshi was telling Yomi to kick Zuko out of the alliance. So it wouldn't look as though Moshi kicked Zuko out, but rather Yomi did. And so Yomi didn't have to go through that. That's why Zuko ended up leaving the alliance. That's how he was forced out. Yomi's this gorgeous, 16-year-old Brazilian girl, Spanish keyboard warrior, and you're putting her through that emotional torment. Because Yomi was one of the first R4s in the Northern Water Tribe, under Zuko. Just absolutely was not fair to her, and that's why Zuko ended up leaving. So Atlas ended up sending Zuko about 1,000 messages per day on Discord. Like, and that is not a joke. It's like 7 minutes for me to scroll through it. I did time it with a video. And Zuko ended up reinstalling the game and resurging and joining Atlas in Cobra. So this whole drama fest erupted. Everyone's kind of infighting, but it also gave everyone a platform to openly speak now. Whether you're in support of Moshi or not, it gave everyone an open platform that they could speak, talk, have discussions, and you could actually see a healing that was going on in the server. Nobody was now scared, because if they were, they could come hide behind Atlas, right? And so working with Chill Guy, Mizzy Tanker, and a member from Cobra Kai called Caden Breaks, which he is currently on vacation. I can show you him. Caden Breaks there. Boom. So Caden ended up becoming the main strategist for the rebellion. And the rebellion was supposed to launch at 13 UTC, and Mizzy Tanker ended up launching an hour earlier at 12 UTC. So the plan was simple, because the Moshi 23 ended up having the support of Wawa Kiyomi. And the reason that Wawa and Kiyomi liked the Moshi is they liked how he was running the ship, and they all liked how he was looking towards the future. They never really played under Zuko, right? So, because for those two behemoths, they came after Hydra, right? And then they were there for the bear, while Zuko was gone since after we got Elite Bird. So they supported the Moshi. They didn't really care who was R4. The Moshi's other, um, his main thing was all about pleasing the 4 T5s. It was all about pleasing us, right? So Atlas being the weakest T5 out of all of them in power overall, the other three were higher than me on the scoreboard. I stood up to the three of them. Now, I did try get graphics to come over to our side because then we could make it a 2v2 for T5s and have an actual war and get some merits. But they were so hyped with the drama as well. Everyone was getting emotional, so they were against that. So it was myself, Atlas versus 3 T5 players. Now, what we ended up doing, and it's the resilience of it is a little bit there, is we ended up capturing this gate before the resurgence happened, or before like you no longer needed a resurge after the magma. So we ended up capturing the south gate, forcing Northern Water Tribe built all the way up there, and they started building a huge defense with flags, bastions, whatever they could build, they were building it up here towards that gate. Well, this was Caden Breaks' big plan that we had devised with everyone else that was part of the resistance and massive resistance alliance chats. We were all open. Our strategy was all open. If we had a spy, then we were hooped, but it was fine. So we captured the gate, forcing them to build up there. Now they built up there and they have no resources left. After the 13 UTC, we ended up taking the northern gate, coming down over the bridge, and we are coming down here to take the dragon. But that was also a secondary bait to bring Northern Water Tribe up here, as we brought PLX from this gate all the way down, because we had pushed PLX back to the Necro there. So PLX was coming down, taking that, and then coming down the northern pass. There is a pathway somewhere in there to get through. Yeah, right here. So they're taking the northern pass all the way down to the dragon, and then we're all going to move from Cobra Kai over to PLX for taking the dragon. So the war ended up being a good thing for the server. It ended up revitalizing people. People were getting bored. It was something. It was drama, and it was fighting, and there was war, and there was actual fighting, right? Merits were actually being gained now. Oh my goodness. So I was fighting with Cobra Kai. Atlas was fighting coming down, and on the bridge was where I was fighting the other 3 T5 players. Now, about 2 to 3 hours into the fight, and I still have a screenshot of this, Moshi 23 gave up. So there was a lot of big talk about how they could never reach the dragon in time. We've got this, everything like that. But about 40% of the player base ended up being behind Zuko, supporting Zuko, and transferring out to either PLX or Cobra Kai. Maybe 10% of the player base supported the Moshi, who was originally a member of the Grey family. He wasn't even a member of Northern Water Tribe. Why Zuko even gave him R5 in the first place, I have no idea. Why he didn't give it to myself, Atlas, or Yomi, I don't know. I have no idea why he picked the Moshi, to be honest with you. It was a big mistake on him. So, yeah, he took... So we ended up having, Mizzy Tanker led the Vietnamese in the south, and they were cutting off they actually cut off the main core fortress they had destroyed, and they were cutting off, and they were building Northern Water Fire up here, and cutting off all of the territory of Northern Water Tribe, cutting them from the back end. So what the Moshi did is he built another Alliance fortress here to keep the area connected, but as they were burning out, PLX stopped going from the north and decided to continue from the west. So they came in through this gate to burn the other core fortress, and at that point in time, their entire alliance would be cut off. All their flags would be cut off, and their 3 T5s were stuck in the north there fighting Atlas. So they really lost all of their support. You know, about 50%, maybe 10 to 15% supported the Moshi. You know, 40% supported Zuko, and the other, you know, let's say 50%, 45% kind of idea were kind of impartial to both sides. They just want to be on the winning side. They want to be left out of the drama, whatever. They weren't part of the whole diplomacy and everything else like that. But since we did get majority of public opinion was on our side, the Moshi ended up quitting. He ended up having, I don't know what he did. Apparently, he said his girlfriend had an emotional breakdown about it, about how stressed he was getting over the game. But at the end of the day, it's just a game. You shouldn't be that stressed about it, right? But they were very upset. So the Moshi ends up saying, I'm stopping the war. I'm done. He just goes, I'm done. Okay, no more war. We're not fighting you. But I'm not giving you the alliance back. So he ended up transferring his farm account to the R5 of the alliance and leaving the alliance dead. So we had like max technology, and that just went dead. So PLX, beautiful PLX, the ones that we had been fighting the entire season through our academy, the PLX that hated Northern Water Tribe, the PLX that just hated us. We joined forces, and PLX ended up giving Zuko PLX. PLX ended up taking over the dragon. Members from Cobra Kai ended up moving over to PLX, and PLX ended up winning the server. So PLX came out on top, winning dragon. It was the one alliance nobody thought would take the dragon in the end. You know, maybe the Grey family as well, because they really only had Solar, but they had a great family. They had a great family, great dynamic, everything like that. They were good people. Too bad that they kind of got forced out there, but that's a different drama that I don't want to get into. But yeah, so unfortunately for Queen, she never did get the dragon. You know, she really wanted the dragon, but she burnt a lot of bridges. She said some really nasty stuff to some players, so they didn't want to support her taking the dragon. So we ended up using PLX to take the dragon, which is now named Northern Water Tribe. Our academy, Northern Water Fire, ended up destroying, and we had to destroy the buildings of all of the old Northern Water Tribe. All the buildings had to be, all the flags, everything had to be burnt down, destroyed. You can see remnants of where there was the old flags, right? You can see remnants of it, Northern Water Tribe with a dash. So you could see how we first built here, went over here, came across. Yeah. So all that work, the entire season, we had to destroy. Entire season's worth of flags were getting destroyed. So Mizzy Tanker led the charge. He led the charge in the south. He was a great influence, a great supporter of the rebellion. Great for getting Zuko placed back on top of Northern Water Tribe. Caden breaks. You know, we had Ogre from Cobra Kai. There was a lot of major, you know, Mind Your Own, a lot of major players that helped support Zuko and getting Zuko back on top. But it was only what was fair. Zuko made the Discord. He built the alliance like he was the original member. He didn't go into building the alliance with any friends. You know, he's the one who built the alliance. He's the one who I was following. He was the one that I wanted as my R5. And everything else like that happened. So in the end, The Northern Water Tribe ended up having Northern Water Tribe. We ended up getting control of Cobra Kai and using that alliance, as well as our academy, Northern Water Fire. So we had three alliances, three main alliances with max tech for going on to the future seasons. Whatever happened to the Moshi 23 and Carnage, I have no idea what happened to them. I honestly don't even look into them, and I don't want to at all. You know, I hope they're doing the best. I remember, you know, talking with K4. Him and I used to spend hours on Discord together, chatting and talking. You know, he was a good friend of mine. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, this was Zuko's alliance, right? So it was only fair, and the Moshi and I weren't getting along, and it was, you know, maybe 48 hours. I don't even think it hit 72 hours from when he forced Zuko out to when I started the rebellion. So yeah, that's the lore, the lore that got created of 666, the huge drama there, the huge fight. You know, everyone's going to spin it their own way, and of course I have my views about it. I'm trying to be impartial and not interject too many of my own views, just saying kind of, you know, this is what happened. So PLX were absolutely huge for giving us their alliance, you know. But because there were disgruntled players, as you know, Wawa and Kiyomi went to 671. So I wish them the absolute best. They were allies of mine, you know. I would never want to betray them, you know. Fantastic. What? Okay, you're there. Where's Wawa? All right. Whatever's happening with their alliance and whatever they're doing, I don't know. But Wawa and Kiyomi ended up going to run 671, so they've been the people in charge of running 671. And where is it? I think it's 692. I can't even. Can I view? I can view. Let's go here. Krathix right there. So Krathix. Oh, wow, they got another 52 million power player. Yep. So Exodus, OG, but Krathix, one of the big pillars of Northern Water Tribe, one of the four pillars, he ended up moving to 692. So he wanted to get away from the drama, get away from all of that, where Atlas moved to SKN 664 to get away from all of the drama that was happening in 666. So that's kind of what happened, what's been going on, and the lore there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this little drama video.